Some of the biggest poker scandals happened live, with cards revealed, thousands watching, and yet nobody noticed at the time. Now I ask you, what if the player who seemed like a genius simply knew what was going to happen even before the cards were turned over? Poker is a game of reading, emotional control, and mathematics. It's about observing patterns, interpreting breaths, identifying almost invisible tells. But what happens when someone already knows the answer before the question is asked? What happens when the impossible decision isn't intuition, isn't experience, but privileged information? What you're about to discover might surprise you, because these stories didn't happen in dark rooms or clandestine tables. They happened under bright lights, high-definition cameras, and live broadcast to the entire world. We're talking about high-stakes games with hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake, commentators analyzing every move, and spectators discussing every decision in real time via chat. An environment where, theoretically, everything is transparent, where technology should protect the integrity of the game. But it was precisely in this scenario that two of the biggest suspicions of cheating in modern poker emerged. Have you ever watched a hand and thought, this doesn't make sense? That strange feeling that something is out of place? In live poker broadcasts, every card, every bet, and every reaction is recorded forever. And it was precisely this total exposure that allowed seemingly small details to transform into big questions. Imagine watching a match where a player simply doesn't make any mistakes. He pays absurd bets, folds strong hands at the exact right moments, and makes decisions that defy all statistical logic. At first you think, talent. Then it starts to sound like luck. But when the winning streak surpasses any reasonable probability, the question stops being, is he good? And becomes, how is he doing this? Poker scandals are nothing new. The game has always been plagued by stories of cheating, collusion, hidden devices, and leaked information. But when this happens in front of thousands of people in a live broadcast, the impact is different. The reputation of players, casinos, and entire programs is at stake. Sponsorships are threatened, the community's trust wavers, and that's where the tension rises. Because in live-streamed high-stakes poker, everything is recorded. Players' cards appear on screen with a delay. Statistics are saved. The internet analyzes every frame. Entire communities begin reviewing hands, creating theories, comparing patterns, and when the numbers start to not add up, the story changes completely. Stick with me until the end, because today I'm going to show you two shocking cheats that were caught during live streams, and one of them almost destroyed the reputation of one of the biggest names in poker. We're not talking about obscure rumors or baseless theories. We're talking about investigations, detailed analysis, explosive reactions at the table, and a debate that divided the global poker community. What's most striking is that in both cases, everything seemed normal at first. Just another high-stakes cash game session, just another all-in, just another courageous decision. But when you look closely, when you understand the context, when you connect the dots, the narrative stops being about skill and becomes about something much more serious. Because ultimately, poker isn't just a card game, it's an information game. And when the information isn't the same for everyone at the table, the whole game changes. And what started as a regular broadcast turns into one of the biggest scandals ever seen on camera. And the first of these stories begins exactly like this, with a sequence of decisions that are too perfect to be mere coincidence. Because when decisions start to defy all logic, when a player seems to operate a few seconds ahead of the rest of the table, the feeling isn't one of admiration, it's one of discomfort. And that's exactly what started happening. People in the chat commenting, Oi, analysts reviewing hands, professional players watching the recording and frowning. Something didn't add up. Perhaps you've experienced this while watching a live poker broadcast. That hand where everything seems too strange. That supernatural red that doesn't match the mathematics of the game. At first you try to justify it. It's talent. It's experience. It's instinct. But as the decisions are repeated, doubt begins to grow. And when doubt grows in public in front of thousands of viewers, it gains strength. And this is where I want to hear from you. Because poker isn't just a card game, it's a game of perception. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has caught your attention so far. Do you believe that in high-stakes live-streamed games, it's still possible for someone to manipulate the system? Or do you think it's all just coincidence amplified by the internet? Your opinion matters a lot. Often it's in the comments that the sharpest analyses emerge, the viewpoints that no one else had considered. When you comment, you're not just interacting, you're helping to build this investigation together with me. You're showing that this type of content, which delves into the behind-the-scenes aspects, which questions what seems obvious, needs to continue to exist. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who also want to understand the hidden side of poker. And if you get that chill down your spine when you realize something might be wrong at a live stream table, if you enjoy analyzing controversial plays, scandals, suspicions, and everything else involving the world of high-stakes poker, then give this video a like now. It may seem simple, but this gesture sends a clear signal that this type of investigation deserves more attention. It helps the video reach other people who may never have stopped to question what they see in the broadcast. And of course, if you want to keep up with stories like this, real cases, controversies that divided the community, and situations that almost shook the credibility of modern poker, subscribe to the channel. Because what happens at the tables may only last a few hours, but the consequences and mysteries behind those decisions continue to echo for years. Here, we don't just accept superficial versions of the facts. We observe, connect the dots, and question. And this community only grows when people like you decide to be a part of it. So participate, comment, like, subscribe. Because what comes next deepens the story even further. And the more attentive eyes analyzing, the closer we get to the truth. And speaking of decisions that are too perfect to ignore, that's exactly what started happening in that particular broadcast. Hand after hand, bet after bet, something caught the eye of anyone willing to look beyond the obvious. And that's when the pattern began to form. It wasn't just a good session. It wasn't just an inspired run. It was something different. He simply didn't lose. It didn't matter the texture of the flop, the apparent strength of his opponent's hand, or the size of the bet on the other side of the table. The decisions seemed to defy not only common logic, but the very mathematics of poker. And when mathematics starts to be repeatedly ignored, something needs to be questioned. We're talking about Mike Posel, playing on the Stones Live program, a typical high-stakes cash game broadcast with cards displayed on screen for the audience, live commentary, and all that behind-the-scenes atmosphere that gives the feeling of total transparency. But as the sessions progressed, one detail stood out. He made mathematically absurd decisions, and he was almost always right. He would call impossible bets with weak hands. He would fold strong hands at the exact moment he was dominated. He would apply surgical pressure when his opponent showed strength. It was as if he were a few steps ahead of everyone else, as if he could see the hidden truth behind the face-down cards. And when you start to calmly review the hands, the feeling of unease only increases. What was initially admiration began to turn into doubt. Behind, because in poker, talent exists, sharp reading exists, strong mentality too. But there is a statistical limit to any winning streak. And when someone surpasses that limit repeatedly, session after session, the transformation of perception is inevitable. What seemed like genius begins to look like something else. And that's exactly what the community began to notice. Professional players started reviewing the recordings. Independent analysts began calculating probabilities. Videos compiling the impossible decisions started circulating. And a curious pattern began to emerge. Subtle movements near the pocket, constant downward glances at crucial moments, small gestures that, in isolation, might seem irrelevant, but together, within a context, took on a different meaning. The question was no longer whether he was good, it was how he was getting so many things right. The statistics became even more unsettling. Win rates well above average. Correct decisions in situations where the available information simply didn't justify that level of precision. It wasn't just a good run, it was an absurd frequency of perfect decisions. And when the frequency exceeds what's acceptable, the narrative changes completely. Behind the scenes, tensions were rising. The discussion moved from the tables to forums, social media, and private player groups. Some argued it was simply a player with extraordinary reading skills. Others claimed that such behavior was impossible without unauthorized access to card information. The journey of suspicion began to take on a public form, and then came the more serious revelations. Formal accusations, legal proceedings, allegations that he had access to the cards transmitted on the program's internal system. The idea that there might be an invisible signal, something that connected the production information directly to the player at the table. The theory seemed like a movie script, but it was being discussed in the real world. The impact was immediate. The Stones Live program lost credibility. The community was divided. Some demanded severe punishments, others asked for concrete proof. The truth, however, seemed to slip between conflicting versions. Internal investigations were conducted, lawsuits were filed, and yet for many the feeling of a definitive answer never came. This touches on something deeper than just money. It touches on trust in the game. Poker is built on the idea of incomplete information and a level playing field. When that foundation is threatened, the entire ecosystem feels the impact. Players begin to question live streams. Casinos reinforce security protocols. The community starts to view every decision with a lens of distrust. And what's most intriguing is that, even today, the debate continues. Some believe it was all just a statistical coincidence amplified by the internet. Others see patterns too clear to ignore. Absolute truth may never have been officially established in a way that satisfies everyone. But the mark left by this case is undeniable, because at its core, this story isn't just about one specific player. It's about mentality, power, and access to information. It's about the impact a suspicion can have on someone's reputation and the structure of an entire game. It's about how, in an environment where everything seems transparent, gray areas can still exist. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what happened next further broadened the discussion about integrity in live poker. The following case brought a different kind of controversy, with immediate reactions at the table, money refunds, and an even more intense division within the community. But before we get into this second episode, tell me one thing. Does all this make sense to you? If so, comment below. This makes sense to me. If the first case had already shaken the confidence of many people, what happened next took this discussion to another level. Because this time, it wasn't a long sequence of perfect decisions. Last time it was a single hand, a single decision, a single moment that exploded live in front of thousands of viewers. We're talking about the controversial all-in match at Hustler Casino Live, involving Robbie Jade Liu and Garrett Adelstein. A high-stakes cash game, stacked chips, high-definition cameras, cards transmitted with a delay to the audience. An atmosphere of controlled tension. Until, in one particular hand, everything went off the rails. The action started relatively normally. Pre-flop betting, position reading, standard strategy. The flop brought possibilities. The turn added even more pressure. And then came the moment that transformed that game into one of the most intense debates in recent live poker history. Garrett went all in. A strong play, consistent with the narrative of the hand. On the other side, Robbie had a combination considered extremely weak in that context. And even so, she paid. The call was instantly deemed by many to be statistically unjustifiable. The cards didn't support that decision within a traditional mathematical logic. The equity was minimal. The chances of being ahead were slim. It wasn't an obvious read. It wasn't a comfortable situation. It was a decision that, for a large part of the community, simply didn't make sense. When the cards were revealed and she won the hand, the impact was immediate. The reaction at the table changed. Garrett showed disbelief. The atmosphere grew heavy. It wasn't just a significant financial loss, it was the feeling that something there was outside the acceptable norm of the game. The body language, the questions asked right there, in the heat of the moment, already indicated that this hand would not be forgotten. And it is at this point that the journey of this story takes on an even deeper dimension, because the debate is no longer just technical. It's no longer just about ranges, blockers, and probabilities. It has come to involve mindset, intention, perception, and above all, the search for a hidden truth. Was it luck? An absurd reading? Or was something happening outside of what was shown in the cards? The broadcast continued, but the atmosphere had already changed. On social media, clips of the hand began circulating minutes later. Analysts paused the video frame by frame. Facial expressions were examined, movements were questioned, theories emerged in real time. The community was divided almost instantly. Some argued that strange decisions are part of poker, that players can act on impulse, intuition, or emotional reading. Others claimed that the play went beyond any reasonable limit of strategic interpretation. The ambiguity fueled the debate, and the more the subject was discussed, the more layers emerged. Shortly after, a new element emerged that further amplified the impact of the case. The money was returned. The return, which could have been seen as a gesture to end the conflict, ended up generating even more questions. If the move was legitimate, why return it? If there was doubt, why not continue the dispute? Each decision made off the table added fuel to the narrative, and then another revelation emerged from behind the scenes. A Hustler Casino live employee was accused of involvement in a parallel theft incident related to the case. Yet, the direct connection to the hand was never conclusively proven. The mere fact that an employee was involved in any irregularity in that context amplified the feeling that there was something bigger behind the surface. Internal investigations were conducted. Technical reports analyzed the transmission system. Experts assessed potential vulnerabilities. Officially, no definitive evidence of cheating was presented. But in the public perception, the seed of doubt had already been planted, and perhaps that's the most powerful point of this story. It's not just about proving something. It's about the transformation of trust. After that hand, many viewers began to watch live broadcasts with a different lens. Every bold decision was viewed with suspicion. Every emotional reaction gained additional weight. Poker has always been a game of decisions under uncertainty. But when uncertainty goes beyond the cards and invades the backstage, the impact is much greater. Because it's not just about losing a hand, it's about questioning the integrity of an entire system. It's about understanding to what extent technology truly protects the game, and where it might create loopholes. To this day, there's no absolute consensus on what happened at that table. There are technical analyses that defend the possibility of intuitive reading. There are theories that suggest something beyond the cards. There are people convinced on both sides, and it is precisely this absence of a definitive conclusion that keeps the case alive. This story shows how a single decision can redefine reputations, trigger investigations, and divide an entire community. It shows how, in the world of live-streamed high-stakes poker, every move carries far more weight than it appears, and it reveals how the line between genius and suspicion can be incredibly thin. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we put the two cases side by side, a disturbing pattern emerges regarding information, power, and vulnerability behind the scenes of live broadcasts. And it is in this connection that we begin to see something even broader about the future of gaming. If all of this makes you feel like there's something beyond the surface, write in the comments. There's something behind it. When we put these two cases side by side, the feeling is clear. After them, live-streamed poker was never the same again. That's no exaggeration. There was a silent but profound transformation in how players, producers, and viewers view the game. Before, live streaming was seen almost as a celebration of transparency. Cameras at every angle, cards displayed on the screen, commentators explaining ranges and probabilities. Technology seemed to be the ultimate guarantee of integrity. The same technology that brought light also revealed new shadows. Because when you transmit cards in real time, even with a delay, you create a system. And every system has behind-the-scenes aspects. It has operators, it has software, it has protocols. And where there are complex systems, there are also potential vulnerabilities. This is a truth that goes beyond poker. It's present in companies, governments, and financial markets. Transparency is never absolute. It depends on who controls what's happening behind the scenes. Live streaming has changed the game by professionalizing the experience. It has brought a global audience, multi-million-dollar sponsorships, and sophisticated technical analysis. It has transformed players into digital celebrities. It has created a new mentality within poker, the mentality of constant performance, where every decision is not only strategic, but also public. The impact of this is enormous. The psychological pressure increases. The exposure is permanent. Every mistake becomes a clip. Every brilliant play becomes a headline. But along with this evolution came an uncomfortable question. Who really controls the information? In the traditional poker model, information is limited to what's on the table. You observe your opponent, calculate probabilities, interpret patterns. Uncertainty is part of the essence of the game. In live streaming, however, there's an additional layer of data circulating behind the scenes. Cards are captured by sensors. Graphs are generated in real time. Someone is operating it. Someone has access to the entire system. This doesn't mean there's fraud, it means there's potential. And when cases like the ones we've seen arise, even without conclusive proof, they trigger something collective: distrust. The viewer's journey ceases to be mere entertainment and becomes an investigation. Every move begins to be analyzed with a closer magnifying glass. The audience's mindset transforms. And perhaps that's the biggest consequence of all this. It wasn't just about a player who seemed unbeatable or a play considered impossible. It was about the shattering of innocence. About realizing that in highly technological environments, the truth can be more complex than it appears on the surface. Technology has brought more transparency, yes. Today we know exactly what cards were at play. We can review hands countless times. We can calculate equities with surgical precision. This has raised the level of analysis to a historic level, but it has also opened the door to endless theories, suspicions, and debates. With each partial revelation, new questions arise. With each investigation concluded, an echo of doubt remains. In poker, the question isn't just who bluffs best, but who controls the information. This phrase carries a weight that goes beyond the chips stacked on the table. Control of information is power. And power, when poorly managed or poorly understood, generates imbalance. Even if no scheme is proven, the simple fact that it could exist already alters collective perception. And perception, in poker and in life, shapes decisions. Perhaps the most unsettling point is precisely this: the absence of definitive answers. In Mike Postal's case, legal proceedings and analyses did not produce a conclusion that would settle the debate for everyone. In Robbie and Garrett's case, technical investigations did not completely eliminate the ambiguity. And it is in this gray area that the narrative continues to live on. Because human beings don't deal well with gaps. When we don't have clear answers, we create hypotheses. When there is no consensus, parallel narratives emerge. And in the world of high-stakes poker, where money, ego, and reputation are at stake, these narratives gain traction quickly. At the same time, it's impossible to ignore the positive side of this transformation. Security protocols have been reinforced. Systems are now audited more rigorously. The community has become more vigilant. Players have started demanding higher standards of integrity. There's an evolution happening, a maturity forced by the crises themselves. But even with improvements, there remains a subtle feeling that not everything can be seen, not everything can be proven, not everything can be explained with graphs and technical reports. And this adds an almost philosophical layer to the discussion. And the truth is, maybe we'll never know everything. Perhaps some decisions will continue to be interpreted differently by different people. Perhaps some suspicions will never be fully clarified. Perhaps live poker has entered a new era, an era where skill, technology, and perception walk hand in hand, creating a more complex landscape than ever before. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we analyze what these episodes reveal about human behavior, pressure, ambition, and control, we begin to see patterns that go far beyond poker. And it is at this deeper level that the conversation truly takes on another dimension. If this reflection resonates with you in any way, write in the comments. Information is power. If you've journeyed with me this far, reflecting on improbable decisions, behind-the-scenes events, technology, and that almost invisible line between genius and suspicion, then you've already realized that this channel isn't just about poker hands. It's about understanding what's behind them. It's about mindset, information, and the layers that many people ignore. If this kind of deeper analysis makes sense to you, consider subscribing, not as an automatic click, but as a way to continue this journey. Because with each story we revisit, with each controversial case we dismantle piece by piece, the idea is always the same: to look beyond the surface. And if you really stayed until the end of this conversation, write in the comments, "I'm with you until the end." It's a simple way for me to know who is truly immersed in these reflections, who isn't just watching the video but absorbing every detail. If at any point you felt that shift in perception, that change in perspective on live poker, leave a like, not as an obligation but as a sign that this connection happened. This type of content thrives when there's an exchange, when analysis finds those who value analysis. And stay with me. There's a video over here that perfectly complements this discussion about the behind-the-scenes decisions that have divided the poker world. Click on it and let's delve even deeper into this conversation there.